So
Hello,
fresh.
everybody. Welcome to Coach's Corner.
Woo woo.
There you go. All right. We got to make sure we get our applause in there, because we appreciate each and every one of you for joining us. Always tuning in. Thank you for all those that are engaging, and commenting and reaching out. And, we really appreciate you tuning in. But the goal is to provide some extremely valuable information, material. And today, we took a little break last week, but all of this we're talking about basically universal laws, and we're diving deep into each one. And today we're covering three of them. But before we get into it, it's always a pleasure talking about this because anyway, we'll dive in. My name is Jamel Matias. I'm a certified mindset success coach / business consultant. I'm the founder of Believe in the Unseen Consulting. It's all about believing in that goal, that milestone, or whatever it is that you want. And, to know that that goal is there and available for you. So I help hardworking people, but unfulfilled professionals who know they're capable of more, yet they feel stuck in a cycle of effort without progress, basically lacking clarity, direction, and the subconscious programming needed to create the income, freedom, and life they truly desire. So really excited to tap in here. I'm going to pass it on to my amazing colleague, Paul.
Thank you, Jamel. Wow, that was quite an introduction. Hard to follow up on that. My name is Paul Wooters. I'm in Burlington, Ontario. I'm also a mindset success mentor, and I'm the head of the Leadership and Development Department at the World Life Education Center in Oakville. And how did this all happen? It happened by learning and using the success principles that we talk about here every week. Because transformation doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design and with intention. And what I teach is that transformation is about mastering how we see and how we interpret and respond to the outside world from within ourselves, and not by trying to control the world from, control the outside world. So I help individuals from all backgrounds, all walks of life, students, athletes. I help them create the life that they want and help them to unlock their real potential to help you create the life that you want and to live to your greatest possibilities. I'm going to pass this on to my friend and colleague, Lou.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jamel. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us live. We appreciate you being here. And if you're catching the replay, welcome. So my name is Lou Perica. I am a speaker and success mindset mentor. And what I do is I help people understand what's really driving their results so they can move from feeling stuck to creating a life that actually feels aligned, fulfilling, and intentional. Because once you see what's actually driving your results, you can't unsee it. And this is where major shifts start to happen. Today, I'm very excited about what we've been discussing here on Coach's Corner, the universal laws. So today we'll be covering the Law of Correspondence, and I thought we were just covering that one. Maybe we'll get into relativity and polarity, but we'll see as we go along. But what I love is about these laws is it helps us understand our world and ourselves and how the two are connected. And this brings, for me, so much clarity because we understand the law of gravity. We all understand that the law doesn't pick and choose who's going to float, who's going to, fall off a building. It works the same for everyone. So when you have a better understanding of the laws, you will start to think a little bit more intentionally of what you're actually thinking, how you're feeling, how you're interpreting things, and how you're behaving. And we start to see our results shift once we have a better understanding, because no matter what, We are operating within these laws, whether we realize it or not. So why not empower ourselves by understanding how we can cooperate with these laws? So I'm excited to tap into this today. Jamel.
Awesome.
Yay!
I can tell Lou's excited to talk about this.
I do. I love it.
We're all excited to talk about this. Like, why not understand yourself, right? And the reason why we're covering these universal laws, we are a part of these laws, and we're part of nature. And it was interesting. I was walking through the park yesterday, beautiful day. We finally have some nice weather, and nice, right? That's perception. And I was like, my daughter was like, look at all the animals and the squirrels, and there's a woodpecker going to town on one of the trees up there, and it's top treetops. And she asked a question, are we animals too? And I'm like, yeah, we are. We're animals, and we're all a part of these laws that we'll be discussing a little bit. And why not understand something that you've been a part of your whole life, and that was here most likely before you and will be here until the end of time, right? So we're going in depth about these, like Lou mentioned. We'll see if we'll go through three particular laws, but who knows where the conversation goes. So for those that are here live, thank you for joining us. Feel free to drop some comments. I see a couple people on YouTube saying hi. Welcome to Coach's Corner. Hopefully something really speaks to you today and gives you some type of insight that you've been seeking on a spiritual level and intellectually as well. So we'll start with the Law of Correspondence. It states that as within, so without. I remember hearing that for the first time, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a song. It sounds beautiful, or a poem. So what that is, it's meaning your outer world is a direct reflection of your inner world. Really think about that. It dictates that your thoughts, beliefs, and emotional state create your reality, allowing you to understand your internal mindset by looking at your external circumstances. Wow. In short, the outside is the mirror of what's happening within. So the law of correspondence, this allows you to see yourself, to know thyself. That's the key. So if you're unaware of what you've been focusing on, obviously your energy, it's not obvious to a lot of people because we're very conditioned to be who we are, right? All the way to this point. So if your feelings are negative, like you're feeling like a low vibration, you're upset all day, you wake up upset, you're allowing certain things dictate how you feel. And Lou smiles when I say this, because that's a physical reaction. The body is an instrument of the mind. So, but anyway, the outside world, your results, the money you make, your professional career, the success you have, your personal life, your social life, all of it's a reflection of what's happening inside of you. So are you aware of what's happening inside of you? And it all starts with your thinking. It always does. It starts with that little thought. Notice when you think one negative thing, another negative thing wants to follow it. That's why it's called a train of thoughts. Think of a train where there's carts and one cart after another, but it works in the opposite side, which we'll talk about the law of polarity as well. So to continue here, it's basically manifestation. So you're manifesting your results through your thoughts and your feelings. So a few key aspects of the law of correspondence, right? As within, so without. So your outer life, like I mentioned, your relationships, your health. Ooh, we can get into that. Finances, I mentioned that, acts as a mirror of your inner thoughts, your inner emotions, and your beliefs. So your beliefs, where do they come from? They come from your upbringing. A lot of these deep-seated beliefs come from how you grew up as a kid in your environment and the people that raised you. And, guardians, grandparents, parents, they love you. But not a lot of people really understand this at a deep level of how our subconscious mind is wide open when we're growing up. So I think that's a good amount to kind of kick things off. I said a lot there. Anybody want to jump in? Sorry.
That was good. You know, a few weeks ago when we were last here, we were talking about, we said something, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. And this is very something similar to what Jamel just said, as within, so without. And some people struggle when they hear that, or when they hear someone say that, because no, the circumstances are dictating, and not, this is what's dictating to me. This is what's happening. And we generally, you know, we accept the law of gravity. You know, we accept laws like that. We don't really question them. We see how they are. We see how the worlds are held in place, and you know, if you step off a building, you're going to fall off. Not some days you will, and some days you won't. So, okay, all these laws, like the Law of Correspondence, is not one that is talked about very often. It's not one that I was really that familiar with. But as Jamel said, as within, so without. So this law teaches that your results, your relationships, your life conditions, they all correspond, as Jamel said, directly with your beliefs, with your, also with like your self-image, the dominant thoughts that you have, the dominant thinking patterns that you have. And so you're not experiencing life as it is, you're experiencing life as you are. So your self-image sets the ceiling for your results. Your beliefs, you know, they shape your perception, and your identity drives your behavior. So if you want to change your results, then, you know, you have to change that, you know, internal programming, or that internal blueprint, as it were. Because if, you know, your outer world reflects your, or if your outer world is a reflection of your inner world, then you have to question, okay, well, how do we interpret and give meaning to what we experience? So it's really about, you know, it's reflection. And so you have to, you know, awareness. Jamel brought up awareness. And I remember, you know, all this teaching and learning and mentoring from Bob, and on the material we study, my awareness just keeps on expanding and growing. And when you have that awareness, I think that's really key. So you really have to pause and reflect when things are happening. You know, what is it that you're thinking? What is going on in your mind? What is it? How do you perceive things? And, you know, how do you look at things? What is your perception of things like that? So, again, when you see things happen in your outer world, it's not about controlling. You can't control your outer world. You can only control what's going on inside. And that's why awareness is so, so important. I'm going to pass this over to my friend Lou.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. So as Jamel mentioned, as Paul mentioned, the law is as within, so without, as above, so below. So, dun, da, 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 da. Here's our trustworthy stick person that brings so much clarity. There are 8.3 billion of these walking around on Earth. 8.3 billion, all really the same underneath our flesh suits. So this is why this stick person brings so much clarity. Without it, I think the three of us would not be here today. But when you understand that underneath this flesh suit, we all operate the same way. That's why it's so important to understand the world that you live in. So a couple of weeks ago, and I may have shared this last time, I was doing a training at a real estate office. And I think it was about the knowing, doing gap, or I forget the title. But anyway, we were all there to learn something. I was there to present some information, and all the attendees were there listening, writing notes, learning new information. And so we were all there focused on the topic and what I was sharing. But once I had mentioned in the class, once we all leave this room, this training room, we all go out and experience the world very differently. So this one gentleman came up from the back of the room and he says, Lou, he said, when I leave this room, all I hear is negative conversations. When I go home, I put on the TV. There's so much negativity on the news, etc. And he says, how do I change that? And what is so interesting is because, let's just call this guy Bob, when he leaves that training room, that's what he experiences. And when I shared with him, when I leave that training room, I experience something very differently. I experience gratitude. I experience the gift of life and how much I appreciate it. I experience being the opportunity to present. I experience, the fresh air, the trees, the nature, et cetera, right? The convenience of having a car, having the money to put gas in the car, all of these things. Now we're the same underneath, but we just perceive the world differently. And Paul brought up the word awareness, and the more of all your understanding, right? It's get understanding, understand how you operate. And when we say we are expanding our awareness, for me, because we are pure awareness, but what happens when I think about it, maybe not necessarily my awareness is expanding, but what's happening is my limiting beliefs, my perception on how I see things, that is kind of melting away. So I'm allowing my true identity of awareness to breathe. And when that's where our power is in the moment when you pause. I used the example last week at another talk. If you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off, right? And that automatic reaction, you might say, and swear or yell or what, and be very angry. But then you may pause for a moment and realize, wow, I just reacted because I just came from a negative conversation, or there's a lot of work going on and there's deadlines, et cetera, or I had an argument with my partner this morning. So in that moment, that pause, that's where our power is. Because you realize, you're aware why you reacted. And again, that's where the power is. So this is why awareness is the greatest shift that we can make, because that's where our power is just pausing and seeing what is happening in our outer world. Because we're all three of us here right now on this panel experience something a little different once we get off of this call. We all experience something different. Maybe very similar, things may overlap, but because of the way we're raised, because of the things we believe, how we interpret things, the relationships, we're all going to experience. But underneath all of that, all those beliefs and those habits and that fixed thinking, we all operate the same. This is why this is so important, and to understand that we truly are creating our own reality. Jamel.
Wow, let me find it.
Get that applause out.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I get so excited when we talk about this because I wish I knew this a long time ago, but I'm grateful that I now understand it. And we keep saying awareness, but let this Coach's Corner make you aware of these gifts that you have and develop them more and more, right? The more you use it, it's a mental muscle, the stronger it gets. And it's basically internal control or internal management. Neville calls it subjective control, right? Because you're actually controlling. I wouldn't say control. I don't like control because it seems a little aggressive.
Guiding. How about guiding? I like guiding.
Yeah, guiding or managing, right?
Yeah.
Your thoughts and your feelings. So, we touched on it. To change your outer circumstances, you must first change your inner thoughts and feelings. You have to. You are the primary cause of your results. You're the primary cause of everything in your life. So, and that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. Take responsibility of your life. Take responsibility of the success you have or lack of, the money that you have, everything. Because when you do that, responsibility is the key to freedom. I did not know that. You can blame all these other people. You can blame the economy, blame circumstances, blame, oh, this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
Use the past to justify where you are in your life.
Yeah.
I know I'm speaking to somebody that's watching because I've been through it, right? So, and we mentioned a few times, as above, so below. So this refers to the connection between the spiritual or mental realm of like mind, body, the above, and the physical world, the below, right? So everything's created twice, once in the unseen and then in the seen. So that beautiful idea you have, maybe you're developing an app, I don't know, maybe some new investment thing or some type of invention or an idea, it has to start where we can't see it, right? And then the physical, right? So everything starts where you can't see it with your naked eye or hear it with your ear, right? So direct reflection. So if your life is in chaos, right, it mirrors internal confusion or limiting beliefs. Positive internal shifts such as gratitude and confidence, they produce positive external results. This is why I gratitude every day. Actually, gratitude throughout the day now. I started implementing more gratitude because I know how it makes me feel, and I'm aware of the power of this practice, right? So for an application, for relationships, for those out there, if you experience conflict in your relationships, married or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, partner, examine your internal insecurities, and as these often manifest as external challenges. So you have to kind of look within, because when certain things happen, even in relationships or whatever, you'll start seeing yourself. And it's just to be objective, right? Don't break yourself down or beat yourself down or talk negative about yourself. This is just to kind of be very vulnerable and like, why is this happening in my life? Or why does this seem to always happen? This is really good because when you're having multiple relationships, I remember, back in the dating life, I was like, okay, so it's weird on a subconscious level. It's like, why did I attract this person? And why are these things happening to me? Now I know they're happening through me. And this should be a really big realization for everyone. So I'll stop there because I can keep going.
Wow, there's so much there, Jamel, what you said. And it's so true, right? You have to really pause, as Lou said, and Jamel was saying, pause a moment and just think, when something is happening, why, like Jamel said, too often our default is, why is this happening to me? Why is it happening to me? But it's happening through me. And okay, so we're talking about the law of correspondence, and we're saying as within, so it is without. And okay, we have to change our internal blueprint. And that's why these laws of correspondence, relativity, and polarity are really interconnected. Because if we want to change our thinking, You know, well, then how do we have to ask yourself, how do we interpret and give meaning to what we're experiencing? And that's where, you know, the law of relativity, for example, comes in, because whatever is happening, it doesn't, nothing has any meaning except the meaning that you give it. You know, everything is relative. Is it bad or is it good? Oh, you know, the weather's terrible today. And you might say, well, we have much worse weather than that. Or the traffic is really bad. Oh, you should see the traffic around here. Or, you know, I injured myself. And so like, oh, that's nothing. You should have seen when I, you know, broke my leg or broke my arm or the cut eye. So it's all relative, right? And so this law is teaching us that experiences are neutral. They just are. Everything just is. And then until we compare them and interpret them and give them meaning, assign some meaning to that which is happening. So there's no good or bad in absolute terms. It's only our perception, which is shaped through comparisons, through comparing one thing to another, right? Things just are. And, you know, so like two people can face the same situation, you know, where one person can see it as a real setback and another person can see it as a lesson. You know, the circumstances could be the same, but the meaning that they assign to them is different. And that meaning determines, that will determine my emotional response to it. That'll determine my decision making, my next, you know, what my next choice is. But I do have a choice. I can choose. And that subsequently, that will affect my future results. So relativity gives me emotional control, or maybe not control, but emotional guidance, if not control, and some resilience. Lou.
I'm glad that you kind of are weaving in the law of relativity, so I'm going to get to that too. But I want you to, it's so easy for all of us, for everyone to observe someone else, how they behave, right? And it's easy for us to connect the way they speak, the way they behave to the results that they are receiving in life, to the results that they are creating, the outcomes. It's very easy. This is why we say, oh, if they only did this, then that would change. And if when you think about it, for ourselves, unless we are walking around or someone is following us 24/7 every day of our life, recording us, and then we get to watch that recording, we don't really realize how we behave, how we're showing up in the world. So how do we know? And that's the law of correspondence. It's a mirror reflection of us. So I like to think of, I think I put Paul on the spot one time because I like listening to a lot of audiobooks, documentaries, etc. And I'm always interested how people describe somebody and how they perceive them and how they interpret somebody else. So I always wonder, how would someone describe me? That's a really good question, right? Sometimes we may not even really want to know the answer, but how would someone describe you overall? And then, because that is our energetic signature. I mean, we have highs and lows. Everybody has highs and lows, good days, not so terrific days, etc. But our overall energetic signature, how would someone describe you? And then take that description and see how it matches with how you're experiencing life. I think that's like an interesting exercise to do, because most people try to change behavior, right? Companies try to change behavior. They have trainings, etc. So most, and I was in that category, and sometimes I still do find myself in that category at times, but then I pause and then I shift. But we're trying to change the behavior and the results, but the behavior and the results are downstream. They are the outcome of what is happening upstream with our thoughts and our emotions and our assumptions. Those are upstream. So when we're trying to change the behavior, it's like trying to shift the current of the river, and it becomes very difficult. Can you change behavior? Yes. But the majority of the time is temporary, because we haven't really gone to the root cause. But as I was saying just earlier, that how we are showing up in life, how we present ourselves, our outcomes, our reality is a response to that. So it might be a good exercise. Just ask someone to describe you. How would they describe you? If they're willing to be honest, it might be a really good test. Jamel?
Yeah, this is so good, and it's basically it's so connected to the law of cause and effect, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how these laws overlap, right? And it's just different ways of explaining the same thing. But the key of it is understanding it and waking up and knowing you're a part of this every day. You can't run away from it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. And you can ignore it. It's fine. But guess what? These laws will keep working. So why not understand it and use it to your advantage to create what you want?
Mm-hmm.
And why do you want things? Why do you desire something outside of yourself from where you are right now? It's because you want to grow. That's the true meaning of desire. It's unexpressed spiritual energy. So it's unexpressed because it wants to experience itself through you. What did it feel like to drive that new car? Or buy your first boat or house or that promotion, a beach house or your first book, having a New York Times bestseller.
Mm-hmm.
What is that feeling? Whatever that desire is, it's waiting for you. And that's why we're here on Coach's Corner, because we want not only have fun and talk about these laws, but we're here to help you. And that's why you attracted this. I see a lot of people here live. You attracted this on a spiritual level, right? So a struggling career, right, often reflects limiting beliefs about your worth. So adopting a confident, positive mindset can change this. And, there's some people like, oh, this can't be real. I just need to think and focus. Yeah, that's all you need to do. You have to shift your thinking, but you're the only problem and the only solution. So some people's beliefs are stronger. They're really in there. It's like weeds you got to pull out, and then all of a sudden you see the roots still stuck in there. So these beliefs will forever, especially in career, they'll forever be there unless you wake up and do something about them. And they like to stay in there. I love that example as a garden, right? We all can relate to it. It's very visual. And if you're not getting them out, the weeds from the root, they're going to grow again. These are like beliefs that you don't want weeds in your garden because it's going to mess up all the other, whatever vegetables and fruits or whatever you're growing, flowers, whatever. They're not wanted, and they don't provide what you desire in that garden. So why not look at what they're there and override them? See, you can always override these limiting beliefs. It's like, every weekend I upgrade all my apps. I do a little upgrade all or update, and you're getting an update with your thinking, with your thoughts. So, and even with health, I mentioned earlier, Chronic stress or poor health is often linked to internal emotional imbalances. So I remember Bob saying he was sick all the time, and he was having migraines early in his career, like really bad headaches. And I know the body is an instrument of the mind. So if you're constantly worrying and doubting, oh, you're putting poison in your mind. You really are. And I I was worrying a couple weeks ago about something, and I was like, you know what? I had the awareness to catch myself.
Mhm.
I was like, hey, I'm worrying almost every last 2 days. Let it go. That's not the way to create, because what happens, the outside will reflect what's happening internally. So you have to be very mindful when you start going down that negative polarity, if you will. So stress and poor health is it's linked to your thoughts and your feelings. Your body is linked to what you think. That sounds like a book right there, book title. But this is very important to understand, and don't be afraid to reach out to one of us to help you with this. And if you desire more in your life and you're meant for more, these laws are connected to that success. It's inevitable. You can't change it. You might want to, but you can't. And it's great that you're here understanding this now. I'll pass it along.
Thank you, Jamel. That's really so important, and we can't underscore enough. This awareness, having this awareness. It's not that understanding these laws and studying these laws doesn't mean that, hey, my life goes along perfectly smooth, or that any of us on the panel here, that we don't feel anxious. Like Jamel just said, he was feeling anxious about something or worried about something. And that happens to myself too. It happened this past week. And you have these moments, and maybe you wake up in the morning, you're anxious about something or worried about something that you have to do, or something that's coming up, and you can just lie there and think about the worry and think about the distress and perceive all these things in your head. Or can challenge yourself to override and think differently. And the garden is such a spring is here. And so, as Jamel said, your mind is like a garden, right? You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. So your thoughts are like seeds. Your thoughts are seeds. So you can decide what you want to plant and what it is you want to override. What are the useless weed seeds that are planted in your mind, and replace them. And it does take a bit of work, but what it does take or require is your awareness. You see yourself, hold back. Why am I thinking this way? Why am I worried? Why am I feeling anxious? What am I thinking about? Just catch yourself, watch your thoughts, and observe. Just observe for a minute. When you're feeling something, just observe the thoughts. Don't really give any meaning to it, but just look at it and observe it. Okay. So we were talking about if you understand the laws, and you can go from why is this happening to me and start asking, what does this mean? And how do I see it? So if everything is relative and meaning is assigned to those things, then that's where, this other law, the law of polarity, comes up. Because if every situation contains more than one perspective, and if every situation has more than one perspective, then that's where the law of polarity comes in, because everything has an opposite. So as Bob would say, if there's an up, there's a down. There's an inside of this house, there's got to be an outside. There couldn't be an inside without an outside. There couldn't be an outside without an inside. If there's fear, there's also confidence. There's success and there's failure. There's light and there's dark. So they're not separate. They're just two extremes of the same thing. Polarity is showing us or teaching us that opposites are simply different degrees of the same scale or the same spectrum. Lou, do you want to add anything?
Oh, yeah. So again, geez, I just love these laws, because it frees me. It frees all of us, knowing that the grander scale of things everything is perfect. It really is. Not necessarily our individual lives, but the grand scale of things, of how the world operates. And when you start to dive into these laws and you see the magnificence behind them. So Paul mentioned the law of relativity. And I just want to state that just having an understanding of the laws and how our mind works and our results, it really is quite simple, but it's not always necessarily easy to follow. But when you're aware, like Jamel and Paul just shared, and I've shared that, yeah, do I get anxious? Do I worry? Yeah, of course I do. But I also understand what's happening. I also understand in that moment, I can choose a different thought. And this is what the law of relativity, it's a law that is always showing you something. And that something you can decide in that moment how you want to respond, who you are. It's just giving you options. So, like when Paul says, you could be in a small room, but if you went in a smaller room, well, that room that you were first in is much bigger, right? So it's just the rooms are just what they are. But when you start comparing them, this gives you some sort of clarity. Well, that room is bigger. I'm in the smaller room now. So it's the same thing with what we're experiencing in life. You are being presented with other people's realities, and you are observing other people's behaviors. And by observing what's happening in the outer world, it's also giving you the choice and option to say, well, I agree with that, or I can identify with that no. So the law of relativity is also helping shape you. You get to shape you. It's just showing you other experiences from other people. And when you're observing those things, you are also shaping who you are and what you believe and what your values are. So when you see something that may not be pleasant, you can look at that and say, that's not who I am. I don't agree with what they are doing. But you need to have something to compare. So you get to choose, make choices. I want to be better than that. I want to show up better than that thing. So that's why we're all really experiencing and learning, not only from our own results, but from everyone else's thoughts, feelings, interpretations, behaviors, and outcomes. So when you look at the grand scale of things, it's really quite magnificent. And underneath it all, or behind it all, is us. Each individual is making his or her own choices of how they want to experience this life. When I was mentioning, I listen to a lot of documentaries on YouTube. They're about an hour long, and I listen to like the Kennedys, the Hines family, all these different families, etc. And I can see the common thread. So a lot of times, using the Kennedys for an example, they wanted to create this dynasty, the father, right, Joe Kennedy. But with each generation, they built upon something, but then the next generation didn't want that original goal and desire. But it's all you're all learning. We're all learning from other people. So that's why I love documentaries, because I see the common thread. One generation, they may have a family goal. This is who we want to be. This is what we want to be. The next generation may play off of it, There may be some sort of succession, but typically the third generation, they don't want they don't want it anymore, right? But everyone's getting to pick and choose how they want to live their own life by examining and observing how someone else is living. And this is what the law of relativity brings to us. You get to pick and choose. Because again, like I said earlier, you're not watching yourself 24/7. You're watching other people. And through what you're observing is helping you shape and mold your own character. So that's what I love about the law of relativity.
This is so good. You have my wheels turning there, Lou. It's so good. And Paul as well. The law of relativity is very interesting. Lou mentioned some powerful things there. You have a choice, right? And a lot of us don't think we have a choice. We think where we are in life, this is it. I'm just going to go by my day and this is it, right? But you always have a choice in every moment. And this is to get a better understanding of yourself. And I was thinking about something I heard in my studies or read somewhere about how two people can walk down the same road and have totally different experiences walking down that road. And one person could see it as like a really dark alley, with rats or dumpsters, and it's kind of creepy, like Halloween. Like, and the other person could see it as an opportunity for maybe investment in some, cleaning service or whatever, right? So they see in different ways. They're looking at the same thing in two totally different ways. And that reminds me of the story as well about, I forgot what town it was, but it was a story about the fires where one family, there was a new people out there and they're interviewing people, and one family was, devastated. They said, we lost everything. Our pictures, our home was burned down, and, just tragic, right? They lost everything physically. And they were very obviously upset about it. And then they interviewed another family, and they were grateful that they lost everything physically, but they're like, we have each other, right? We have our significant others and our kids and even our dogs. So the same thing happened, but two different families saw something different. And this connects to perception as well. It really does. How do you perceive things? And how you perceive things even shapes who you believe yourself to be. It shapes who you are and your belief system. It's really deep when you think about how the outside can shape the inside and how you perceive the outside. So that's why, when both of you are talking, I was like, wow, the law of relativity is a really very special one when you really think about it. And then I went a little further with some science here, because we're talking about Einstein here. The law of relativity, this is the science part of it, right? It says primarily developed by Albert Einstein, states that motion is relative to a frame of reference. We'll stop there. So a frame of reference. So reference is where you are, right? Where you are. And everyone's at different levels in life, right? And that the laws of physics are the same for all inertial observers. Inertial means non-accelerating, so you're still. So it's the same for everybody, right? With light speed being constant. So this is so good. When you look at the science part of it, light speed is the same for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, but it depends on how you see it. It's relative to your perception. So you can tie that in with those two stories that I shared, because it really makes you look at yourself It really does. And not in a negative way, but you're like, wow, I've been thinking like that my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And you can always shift your beliefs and your understanding of yourself. And that is a big, big avenue or tool to utilize. Because when you change yourself, guess what? What was the first law? Law of correspondence. You start changing everything outside of you when you start applying this. So yeah, I wanted to throw science in there as well, because some people can relate to that as well. Thanks, Paul.
You deserve it. I'm really glad you brought up a great example of, two people going down a street and they experience different things, right? And it's a good example, because I was going to say, like, these things, they're not separate. They're just two extremes of the same thing. And that's where the law of polarity comes in, or law of relativity, and it ties into the law of polarity, because polarity is teaching us that the opposites are simply different degrees on the same scale. As Jamel said, two people walking down the same street, one person experiences one thing, one person sees it a completely different way. It's like fear and courage. They aren't different in nature. They're just different in intensity.
Mm.
So someone could be very courageous going down that street, and someone could be very fearful. So they're not different in nature. They're just different in intensity. Lack and abundance, same thing. They're not separate. They're just points along the same scale. And so you can transform your experience by shifting along the scale, right? Shifting along that scale. And that's where your perception comes in, and the law of then the law of correspondence ties into that. And that's when your true power, that's where your true power lies, or where true empowerment happens. If fear exists, so does confidence. It exists also. You can't say it doesn't exist. If doubt exists, then certainty also is available. If a problem exists, then the solution exists somewhere in that same field. So really, when you think about it, you're never really stuck. You feel stuck, but you're not really stuck. You're just positioned somewhere along that scale, on one end of that spectrum or another. And so instead of trying to just eliminate a negative state, you have to recognize its opposite. So you don't want something, that you must want the opposite of that. And then you consciously move toward that thing. So you shift your focus, you shift your language, you shift the meaning behind it. So, there's a good saying, you don't fight darkness with darkness. You fight darkness by introducing the light, right?
Awesome. You got some love there, Paul, too.
Saludos, amigo. I like that. Very good. Yeah, so again, somebody had made a comment here. I don't know.
Yeah, that's Corey. Mm-hmm.
Corey works
Hi,
with
Corey.
trauma survivors, and notice the theme of limiting beliefs. It can be challenging with people with PTSD to control this. So this is why I think myself and Jamel and Paul and Alicia, why we're so passionate to bring Coach's Corner to people, because all of the discussions is all about the human experience. And we're not going to get into it today, but to understand that we are spirit, we are pure awareness, experiencing what it's like to be a human. And to be a human, you will experience things that may be very traumatic. And again, and this could be a little difficult to grasp, because I know it was for me. And that's why learning and understanding who and what I was, and universal laws, the power of the mind, etc., that everything just is. Now, do I see things that bother me? Absolutely. Absolutely. But if I keep replaying, I'll give you a good example. I saw there was this lost dog in my neighborhood, and I took pictures and I posted it on, I think it's called Nextdoor. And every time I looked at these pictures, I got this sickening feeling because he looked emaciated, he was thin, he had scars, his tail was tucked between his legs, his back legs. And every time I looked at those pictures, the emotions that came up, that I thought somebody was hurting this dog. Maybe, I don't know. But in my mind, I created this. So I had to delete the pictures because I kept reinfecting myself every time I saw those pictures. So I had to see the good. I understand there's good in the world, and I focus on the good. There's always going to be the opposite. This is what the law of polarity. And once again, when you see the opposite of what your values and what your beliefs are, you get to choose. Did this thing, maybe you were victimized, but it doesn't mean you have to be a victim. Understand that from an experience, no matter what it may have been, you get to choose. Unless you keep replaying, like every time I saw those pictures, I was like, oh, I felt terrible. I felt so bad inside. Because when it comes to animals and somebody, that's why I tell people, if it's about an animal, do not go down that road because it will bother me. So I know that stuff is happening out in the world. I know that. I'm not sticking my head in the ground. But all I can do is shift the way I see things to make my world a better world so I can have a ripple effect of the people around me. That's what I can do. That's what I can do. So as far as, yeah, I'm sure it can be. But when we keep talking about something that happened, we keep reinfecting ourselves. So this is why at the very beginning of Coach's Corner, the very, very first thing was, what do you want? What do you want? And put your attention on that. So many times we revisit things because that's all we know. We don't have a goal. We don't have something bigger to take us out of a trap, so to speak. And that trap is only in the mind. It doesn't exist anymore. That trauma doesn't, what that experience doesn't exist anymore, only in the mind. But this is why when you understand that you're having a human experience and that there's these universal laws and that everyone can choose, everyone can. That's why we're so passionate about bringing this to you. So I hope that addressed a little bit anyway.
Definitely. It did. It really did. That was beautiful, Lou. And Corey, thanks for tuning in and for the question or statement. What's important about this is you have to fill your cup up. You have to improve yourself in order to help others. Focusing on the negative will just give you more what you don't want. It'll give you more negative. And in order for you to have a bigger impact, you have to develop yourself. You have to develop your awareness. You have to apply these laws, understand them for one, and get uncomfortable for the growth that you're seeking in order to impact other people, right? You're looking at it. We're living it right now. To be where we are, we had to basically break through some discomfort and grow as people and understand what we're sharing here. It's not just words, it's expression. It's living it, experiencing it, so we can help others experience it as well at a very high level, extreme high level. So remember, your environment and experiences are not accidental. They're not, but are fundamentally linked to your inner state. Always. There's nothing happening by accident. It's on purpose that you're here. It's on purpose that you heard this. It's on purpose that you feel the way you feel right now. And it's on purpose of the actions you take after this and throughout your life. So everything in the universe, everything has an opposite. Everything. And we shared that. And it's interesting. And these opposites are actually two sides of the same thing. So if you're wanting to learn more about what we're sharing here and really apply it and become that opposite side of where you are, reach out to one of us. You can message us on whatever platform you're watching this, and you can always set up a complimentary call with one of us. And what will try to stop you? Your limiting beliefs, your limiting self, because it's out of your comfort zone for most people. Are they going to try and sell me something? Are they going to try and talk me into something? If you desire, more in your life in any level, and you're not happy where you are fulfilled, you have to make a committed decision. Nothing will change if you don't. So there's Coach's Corner. We talked a little bit about, universal laws. Always a pleasure. Anybody have anything going on this month or next month you want to share?
Yes, I do. At the World Life Education Center this week, this Friday, March 27th at 7 p.m., I'm introducing the Inner Game series. And the first masterclass is the art of goal creation. And why do I say it's an art? Because, most people don't have a goal, and a lot of goals fail. Why do they fail? Why do they fail for some people and not others? So it's the art of goal creation. It's part of my Inner Game series, and it's on Friday, March 27th at the World Life Education Center. Lou.
Awesome.
Very cool. Next Saturday, I'm going to be a speaker at Chicks in Charge. So I'm looking forward to be sharing the stage with 3 other amazing women, and that'll be sharing their stories, their experiences from where they were to where they are now. And I'm really looking forward to not only sharing my story, but also pulling out of the 3 other speakers, because I'll be going last, the common thread. And as I shared with Paul, because everything that everyone is experiencing, you'll hear the same words come up. I didn't know I could do it. I was fearful, but I just got the courage. This is something I truly wanted. I just persisted. I believed. I had faith. All of these words that you will hear in every biography, etc., are all things that you cannot purchase on Amazon. They are all within. So that's what I'll be sharing. Not only my story, but the common thread in everybody's story and journey.
I love it. This is so awesome. I want to attend both of them. Just be a fly on the wall.
Come on down.
Oh, wow. April 20th, I'm doing a 5-day live challenge. So that'll be fun. We're tapping into, a lot of different things, obviously goals, paradigms, beliefs, decisions. I have some surprises as well. So I'm really excited. 5 days, all week, you know, an hour each session, and I'll be pouring my heart out to you and probably sweating my shirt out as every night. So it'll be great exercise, but, you know, it'll also be something very powerful for you. So, you know, don't let this conversation stop here. You know, if you felt something resonated with you, again, just reach out to one of us. We're always here to help. And don't let, you know, your current circumstances dictate your future. You can go beyond where you are. You really can. So this has been another Coach's Corner. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next weekend. Bye, everybody.